Hey, everybody. Hope everybody had a Merry Christmas. I'm Julie Roginsky here with Michelle Kinney and Jeff Jarvis. We're talking about our weekly roundup of everything that happened in media this week. Just as a heads up, we are pre-recording this on Tuesday, the Tuesday before Christmas, because on Friday, when this would be live, I will be traveling. And so we are talking about things that are sort of have happened earlier in the week, but by the time you watch this on Friday,
all kinds of new horrors will have happened that we are innocent about.
Who knows? I mean, 60 Minutes might not have any staff anymore, and Paramount might now, who knows? I mean, I don't even know what's going to happen. Anyway, wanted to talk about 60 Minutes because on Sunday, there was supposed to be a explosive story about CCOT and how this United States government in our name is sending Venezuelan men, over 200 of them, to CCOT, a concentration camp. I don't know how else to describe it, in El Salvador, really extrajudicially. And that 60 Minutes did an entire segment on it that was supposed to air. They had promoted it. They were running ads for it. Everybody was gathering around the television to watch it on Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then about an hour or two before it was supposed to air, we got word that it was pulled. And it was pulled at the behest of Barry Weiss, the new editor-in-chief of CBS, not just 60 Minutes, but she is over all of CBS, directly reporting to Larry and David Ellison, the new owners of Paramount Skydance. And it turned out that Sharon Alfonsi, who was the person who put together the segment and had done the reporting on it, put out a statement effectively blasting CBS, blasting Barry Weiss for pulling this and saying that the reason this happened was because the White House killed it, and that Barry Weiss killed it on behalf of the White House. Barry Weiss came out and said that, yes, in fact, she had postponed it, not killed it, because she wanted both sides of the story to be told. I guess the fascist side also needed to be told.
They don't want to be left out, Julie.
Yeah, they don't want to be left out. Well, apparently you did want.
Well, in fact, they did want to be left out.
They
were given chances, and they said no. We're not going to say anything, and they sent all comment to Venezuela, and Venezuela also declined.
Right. So,
shocking.
From that perspective, I think it's important to talk about, Jeff, your thoughts on this. Michelle and I have been kind of talking about this all week, but where does 60 Minutes go from here? I mean, 60 Minutes has, just to put it in perspective, 60 Minutes has a new executive editor, a woman named Tanya Simon, who is a lifer at 60 Minutes. And 60 Minutes, I think, my sense is, has its own very stringent journalistic culture that is separate and apart from the rest of CBS. Tanya Simon is Bob Simon's daughter, but she's much more than that in her own right. She has built her entire career at 60 Minutes. She has climbed the ranks, and she is, I happen to know her personally, so I'm going to try to not gush about her, but she's a wonderful person, just a fantastic person. But from what I can also tell, is a great journalist who has come by it honestly, not just because of who her father once was. And that 60 Minutes was guaranteed that there would be no interference when the Ellisons, who are very close to Donald Trump, took over. I do want to mention something that Dan Rather pointed out in his Substack today, which is not necessarily unique to Dan Rather, but he put it all together very nicely. Barry Weiss was given 5 chances to look at the CCOT story before it ran. She looked at it on Friday. She gave feedback. The feedback was incorporated. It was good to go. It was greenlit. And then by Saturday afternoon, she pulled it. Or she didn't pull it. She had more feedback that she had. And then by Sunday, I guess she pulled it. Well, what happened between when she greenlit it on Friday and Saturday is that Donald Trump gave a speech. And in that speech, Donald Trump was complaining that the Ellisons, that the new ownership of 60 Minutes was just as bad, if not worse, than the previous ownership. And he didn't even know what the point of the whole thing was, because 60 Minutes continued to treat him awfully in light of, obviously, we think, Leslie Stahl giving a platform to Marjorie Taylor Greene last week to trash Trump. So all of a sudden 60 Minutes is awful. And somehow between this being greenlit by Barry Weiss then and Trump's speech, Barry Weiss decided this was not ready for airing. Thoughts? Comments?
So, a few things. One, as by now people know, CBS, thinking that this was in the can and ready for air, distributed the show to its syndication customers, including a network in Canada, which put it up on its app, at least in Eastern Canada. And that's how we've all been able to see the entire piece. The piece is excellent. Barry Weiss said it didn't move things far enough. Bull. It is frightening for what it says about what is being done in our names. But because that's been out there now, Barry Weiss is in a really interesting vice, because she has said, oh, no, it'll air. I just want to make it a better show. That's what I do. That's what editors do, right? Well, now we're going to see what the particular Barry Weiss additions are to this. The Stephen Miller interview, which she wanted, or whatever else. And so she's in this position where she's going to be compared to herself and to her own network. This is just another slap at CBS. CBS News is dead. It died in 2025. 60 Minutes might as well be dead. This is the first shot in the heart. There'll be a few more, but it's 1968 to 2025, RIP. And of course, what concerns me more now than CBS is still the potential that Barry Weiss could be in charge of CNN. They called me yesterday, booked me for Abby Phillips' show to talk about this. Unfortunately, I got bumped by the end of the day. But what I wanted to do...
I'm shocked. You got bumped?
I got bumped. Other news. But what I wanted to do was stare at the camera straight on and speak to journalists in this country and say that we need CNN. We depend on CNN in this democracy and in this nation. And yes, it has its faults.
Yeah.
But given the state of media now, given how many people still do watch CNN, given its influence, given the good journalists who are there, we cannot allow this to come under the thumb of Barry Weiss and the mini Murdochs, the Ellisons, and thus Donald Trump. It is bad for democracy. It's bad for America. And we've got to hear more of an outcry about this. We've got to hear more shock and anger and anything, and journalists are just being silent. Then finally, the other interesting thing to me, and it's very interesting since you know the EP now, 60 Minutes, the position they're in. And I think I've said this on this conversation with you before. If you're a third level night shift producer at a station that gets bought by Sinclair, I'm sympathetic with you. And when Sinclair does something terrible and Murdoch-like and Ellison-like, I can't expect you to quit overnight because you're poor anyway. You're not paid well. You've got a family to support. I get that. But if you're on 60 Minutes, and if you have a lot of money in the bank because you're paid well, and if more importantly to you, you have a reputation as a journalist. If you're Anderson Cooper, 60 Minutes is not your whole life. CNN is your whole life. At what point do you stand up and say, I protest loudly, I protest publicly, or I quit? I cannot be part of this. On the socials today, my former colleague Carrie Brown at Kinney said that she quit the university where we both were because we did not agree with the principles of the administration. I quit for the same reason. We both left tenured positions. We did so out of a matter of principle. I quit Entertainment Weekly, the magazine I started, in a matter of principle. I can't expect a story I tell in my book magazine for sale now. A fun read. Always be selling. And I can't expect I'm not trying to stand up as if I'm any kind of martyr or virtuous, but at some point you hit that point where you have to, where you say, this is enough. I can't be part of this. And so what I'm going to be watching very carefully, and it's a very uncomfortable position, and I'm empathetic to it, but what happens to every correspondent on 60 Minutes? What happens to the executive producer of 60 Minutes? When do they hit the point where they say, I have to speak out publicly, and if this goes the wrong way, I cannot stay and cannot be part of this? And to me, that's going to be the interesting part now. We know that Barry Weiss is going to ruin 60 Minutes, full stop. The only question is how quickly it happens and against how much resistance.
Yeah.
Yes, and I would think, and I don't know, I certainly don't speak to, I haven't spoken to anybody there, but I would think that they're waiting to see whether the pushback that she's getting now is going to break her or break them, and to see whether she will continue to intervene or whether they will win out.
What stops her from intervening? I don't see anything that stops
her.
her.
And I think that's the problem.
Yeah, right? I mean, I don't see this going the way that we all hope that it will.
Yeah.
I think it's already over. I think it's just a matter of coming to terms with it. And, I made this analogy. All the days are blending in together, so I don't know when I said this, Julie, but I compared her to Pete Hegseth as in she is like so terribly unqualified for her job, but she's out there acting like she's so hard. She's like, swinging away at people who should be her boss, not the other way around. And it's a very Pete Hegseth, behavior in a role that you don't belong in. She doesn't belong there. Yeah, she is.
She didn't belong in the New York Times when they hired her.
Yeah, she's not. She doesn't own a television. My God. Who runs a news division and broadcast television who doesn't own a television? Like, it doesn't, I don't know what kind of virtue signaling this is. Like, I'm not participating. Okay, then don't take the job. If you can't live, eat, and breathe this job that is so terribly important. It's so, and to Scott Pelley, right? They had this internal meeting where they're all going over this. Scott Pelley says this is not a part-time job because they were doing reviews of this report and she just wouldn't show up.
And I think what Sharon Alfonsi said in her memo, there are two things that she said in her memo that I think are just,
which was great,
which is great, that I think are really important, right? One is that she reached out to Barry Weiss. Mm-hmm. Barry Weiss would not take the call.
Yep.
Now, what an absolute abject exhibit of cowardice. I mean, that is just cowardly. You're not going to take the call from the woman whose story you're killing, from one of your own journalists. You're not going to take the call to say, hey, this is my rationale. This is why I'm doing this. Maybe we need to do A or B or C. Apparently, she worked through the EP. She would not speak to the woman who was directly responsible for the story. That is absurd. That is absurd when you treat a journalist of Sharon Alfonsi's stature as though she is an intern and you don't need to talk to her. The second thing that Sharon Alfonsi said, and I keep going back to this from a survivor-centric lens here. Mm-hmm. Sharon Alfonsi said this, and it just struck with me so much because there are countless survivors, whether they're Epstein survivors, whether they are sexual, harassment survivors in newsrooms around the country over the course of the last 10 years, whether they are CCOT survivors. But these are people, as Sharon Alfonsi said, these men spoke to 60 Minutes at great risk and peril.
Yes.
And exposed something about the rot, not just inside El Salvador, not just the rot inside CCOT, but the rot inside the heart of the most powerful people on earth, the President of the United States and his minions.
Yep.
And Sharon Alfonsi, this just really stuck with me. These people spoke to 60 Minutes, thinking that they were going to advance the story.
On
camera, with their faces.
Their names, everything.
And they are now in Venezuela, like sitting ducks.
Yep.
Yeah.
And 60 Minutes obviously called the White House for comment. Well, the White House knows exactly who spoke to 60 Minutes. And yet, that story, if it were up to Barry Weiss, would never have been told. And I don't believe for one second that she wanted to advance the story because if the White House wanted Stephen Miller to come on, Stephen Miller would have come on. If they wanted Tom Homan to come on, Tom Homan would have come on. You think 60 Minutes would have said, oh, no, we're not putting Stephen Miller or whoever on. And then you had Sarah Fisher at Axios, which I was shocked.
Right.
Say, oh, yes, well, I have a breaking news thing that the White House or DHS did send a message, did give a statement to 60 Minutes, but 60 Minutes failed to include it. Well, was the statement like, this is fake news and we're not going to talk to you? Was that the statement?
Right.
I mean, come on.
Axios is getting worse and worse, I fear.
Yeah.
It's like hackery.
You're like a hack if that's what you're putting out there. Come on.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
you're just going to take their word. Oh, yeah. So, okay.
Well, what did they say? If they spoke on the record,
yeah,
what
be
said?
specific. Who was it? Who did you talk to?
Who
Was
was
it
it?
Caroline
And
And
Levitt?
did it
Was
respond to
Miller?
any of the allegations or facts in the actual story? I think you raise a really important point here, Julie, about this. Barry Weiss's arguments that she wanted to advance the story. I've been an editor of a magazine. I've been editor of online sites, and that is something that editors say is this doesn't go far enough. But number one, that's said early in the process of a story.
Of course.
That's just how journalism works. You say, okay, we don't have enough reporting. We're not going to schedule this because we haven't gone far enough, which is BS. Point two, because it does advance the story. These brave individuals who stood on camera, articulate, smart college student who sits there, who's clearly not a gang member, who tells us exactly what happened to him, and it's horrific. And it is a concentration camp because people who go in don't come out. And this is a rare moment to talk to people who came out and to hear from this, and for her to then dismiss them, not just to not air them, but to say, oh, this doesn't advance the story. Everybody knows this already, is to say that we don't hear the victims.
I'm going to say this, and I feel like I can say this because I'm Jewish, so I'm just going to say it. Barry Weiss makes a very big deal out of her Judaism, right? Not just her pro-Israel beliefs, but she makes a big deal out of being Jewish. So I'm going to make an analogy that only I think a Jew can make with a straight face. If somebody were to do a story on Dachau in 1934, 35, right before it became a real death camp, although people did die there from the beginning, as they have at Sikot.
Yes.
And somebody was able to get interviews with the building tradesman or the communist or whoever was at Dachau in the beginning before it became a death camp. But the people who were sent there who were enemies of the state. And somebody was able to actually get an interview with the people who had walked out of there by some miracle. Would Barry Weiss have killed that interview because Joseph Goebbels didn't want to give comment about it? I mean, you're exposing the moral rot at the heart of a regime. And I don't mean the El Salvadorian regime. I mean us.
In our names.
In our names. And I will say this, and I'm sorry, and I don't really ever play this card, but as a Jew, I am so disgusted with her because she should know better. She should know better. And all of this virtue signaling about how, there's anti-Semitism and so on and so forth. What are you doing? What are you doing? Do you not know your own history?
It only exposes once again how anti-Semitism has been used as an exploitative card, not meant with any sincerity. And we see this, obviously, what happened at Turning Point and such. It all brings out the absolute blindness to history. And
disgusting.
One of the former inmates of Sikot who said that when you get there, they tell you that you will not see daylight, you will not see darkness, you will not see the outside ever again. You're going to die here.
Yeah. I can't imagine even being like the hopelessness in that moment that a human being must feel, and all of the raw emotions and trauma, and then to come out alive and tell the story. And I'm reminded of those two survivors. I just looked it up to make sure. It's Rudolph, and I don't know how to say the last name, and then Alfred Wetzler, that escaped Auschwitz, and then they traveled to tell people what was going on, and no one believed them because the atrocities seemed so horrific and so beyond human capability that no one believed them. And so it continued. Right. And here we are, you can see it with your own eyes. They're showing us.
Here it's even worse because let's give everybody the benefit of the doubt that they didn't believe the Auschwitz survivors because it was so beyond comprehension.
Yeah.
We all believe it, and they know that we're going to believe it.
They're bragging about it.
Which is why they don't want us to see it. Which is why they don't want us to see it, is because they know that these survivors will be believed. And her bullshit excuse of, well, the New York Times already covered this. Okay, maybe, but there's one medium, which is the written word, and there's a different medium, which is we are putting a face to this several faces to this. You're showing pictures of people kneeling for 24 hours like this on their knees. And if they, God forbid, make a sound or a peep or a motion, they will be sent to some brig where they will be beaten into a pulp. You show a picture of that. I mean, does she not understand how like television is a visual medium?
Well, also, if you're in the content business, which I'm not a journalist, but I know about content and I know about, you know, what's overkill, what's not. If she's saying something like, well, the New York Times already covered this, like, so
what?
So then
what?
you do too. Then everybody does. That's how this works. You know,
one of the other I think powerful moments in the show was when journalism students using devices that are probably from Bellingcat use good, important reporting techniques to verify what's happening and to understand what's happening, including about the tattoos, about the location, about all kinds of things. And so Barry Weiss stands up there as if she's the paragon of some standards in journalism. And of course, we also have free press to judge by. Tawny Marshall and Michael Hobbs put up some wonderful posts with the headlines they had about trans care. And weird, says Tawny, how the Free Press was able to publish all these without comment from the Washington University Transgender Center at St. Louis Children's Hospital. All this negative stuff about trans care there. And she doesn't follow her own supposed standards. No. She doesn't have these standards. Once again, she's a hack.
And unqualified and over her skis.
And she was put in charge because she would do what she was told to do.
Yep. And she got $150 million for her Substack for it, which I want to remind people again is the very ironically named Free Press.
Unreal.
Right? There's no free press at CBS anymore.
No.
And for those of us who grew up on 60 Minutes, I mean, and I said this before, Jeff, I've said this the last couple of days, and I will say it again, because this is a media show. As I said to Michelle this morning on our show, one of my earliest memories was when I was little, watching my parents in Moscow gather around a transistor radio, trying to pick up Voice of America. Yeah. And the fact that we have Canada acting as Voice of America now, and not because the authorities are jamming the signal, but because the media, in anticipation of the authorities, is bending the knee preemptively, is in some ways even sadder, because at least there you could pretend, well, the media would want to do the right thing, except that, of course, they're not being able, they're prevented from doing it because they will be in the gulag. This is just about money. This isn't about your personal freedom. It's not like Larry Ellison or Barry Weiss are being are worried they're going to be sent to CCOT or some gulag somewhere if they run this. This is about money. Yeah. It's even worse.
Yeah.
You can't even pretend this is about your personal safety, and that's why you're pulling your punches.
Right. And in the year 2025, in the United States of America, we are relying on bootlegged segments of 60 Minutes to be sent via, some random guy in his living room filming it on his iPhone and then putting it on YouTube, which then Paramount took down just a couple hours later. And luckily enough of us were able to screen grab that and then rebroadcast it. We rebroadcast it last night. We're a tiny little channel here. We have over 100,000 views on that right now as of Tuesday. By Friday, I don't know how many it'll be, but it really resonated with people being like, holy shit, people are angry. They're angry that this was taken from them.
And this is the kind of responsible guerrilla action that's needed. You did this. Archive.org has a good quality video up. Others have put this up. It's really important to say, if it's going to be censored on 60 Minutes, fine. You don't need mass media anymore. It's dead. So we can go around you.
Can I actually also say something that we broke here on Friday? I don't know if we were the first to break it, but we were the first, on Sunday, we were the first to
make a big deal out of it. Yeah.
And as we sit here on Tuesday, mainstream media still hasn't picked up on it, which I think is just bonkers. There was a redacted story, a redacted email in the Epstein files that came out from a woman who we know was Sarah Ransome, even if the email had stayed redacted because it said Ransome on the bottom of it. Her name was not redacted. She is an Epstein survivor, and she had reported that an redacted named person had, and I hate describing this, but had so abused a second Epstein survivor, who he repeatedly had sex with, a second Epstein survivor of Jeffrey Epstein's mansion in New York, as she said it over and over and over again, that when Sarah Ransom, showered with this second Epstein survivor, she saw her nipples. They were raw and bleeding because this person, redacted, had flicked and sucked her nipples so hard over and over again that basically this woman was in really bad shape. Some of us are old enough to remember when that email was released at the behest of a judge in 2024 by the Justice Department, the Biden Justice Department, not because they were in the business of releasing survivor testimony, but because a federal judge made them do it. As part of, this email had been entered into evidence by Alan Dershowitz, who was an intervener, as part of the lawsuit between Virginia Giuffre and Ghislaine Maxwell back in 2017. The email had been written in 2016 to Maureen Callahan at the New York Post, who's now at the Daily Mail. And that email finally saw the light of day unredacted last year in 2024. This administration redacted that email, obviously forgetting or maybe not caring that we already knew, had seen it unredacted. The person who had done this to the survivor, who had flicked and sucked her nipples, and using the words that were in this email, so hard that they were bleeding, was Donald Trump. And yet you had Joe Scarborough this Tuesday, and again, I want to let people know we're pre-taping this on Tuesday. Joe Scarborough went on his show yesterday or today, I forgot which day
it was. Yesterday morning.
Yesterday, Monday morning, and said Donald Trump, he's not on these files.
Yeah.
If this little bootstrap outfit, Mayday Network,
with no research team, no money, no anything.
Lawyers.
Right.
Lawyers can put this together, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
And I heard from another cable news, a very prominent cable news guy, when I posted this on Twitter, who direct messaged me and said, how do you know this? How do you know this? And I said, well, if you're going to credit me for it, here's my Substack. But I know this because of A, B, and C. Showed him the unredacted emails, showed him the redacted email. He wrote back, great journalism, great investigative journalism, fantastic. Come on the show. I said, happy to do it. Scrapped.
Let me guess. You got bumped.
I did. I got bumped.
Amazing.
Mainstream media has yet to run with this.
Well, so when I first got out to my in-laws this weekend is when I had only been here for maybe a few hours when Julie called me with this discovery. And we decided to go live with that. And so, my in-laws, everybody's watching downstairs, watch us go live. And actually, right before we came on to record this, my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law were like, hey, like, whatever happened with that? Did anybody go? Have you seen it anywhere? And I'm like, no.
And still not. It's been 48 hours.
Well, what happened at CNN? Did it? No. Nothing.
Nope.
Nothing. And the thing is, I was watching a segment on MSNBC yesterday too, during Katie Turr's hour. Somebody else was filling in for her. And they had a panel on talking about this, all very smart people who know what they're talking about. And again, just talking about this, like this stuff doesn't exist. Like Todd Blanche went on Meet the Press on Sunday and said, as plain as day, that the only redactions that they're doing with any of this is to protect the victims, who we like to refer to as survivors, but in his words, victims.
Yep. And
that is complete horseshit, because Ransom, the name Ransom, was never redacted on either version of this. The only name that was redacted was Donald Trump's. So these redactions were made for one reason only, and it was to protect the president of the United States, who is
nobody is calling it out. I mean,
no. And today you have the next dribble of documents as we talk on Tuesday is the plane. Oh wow, surprise! He was on the plane more than we knew,
right.
Which means that he's in those files more than we now know.
Yeah.
We don't know what that 100-odd page fully redacted document is when it's not supposed to be redacted like that.
Yeah.
And now I'm already hearing conspiracy theories about the Jeffrey Epstein letter to Nasser.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
wow.
talked about that this morning. And
Let me just say that actually does seem to be a fake letter. Because it was postmarked in Nova, which is Northern Virginia. Jeffrey Epstein could not have sent it if it was postmarked from Nova, and the handwriting, not that we're handwriting experts, but if you look at the handwriting of that email, it was very different from the handwriting samples that you saw with Jeffrey Epstein otherwise.
So the problem is we're now that puts doubt on everything that comes out of the files.
Muddying the waters.
Well, that's exactly the point.
Like, look at all this evidence. It's not trustworthy. So, you can't look at any of this and assume that Donald Trump is guilty or implicated, or even Bill Clinton or any of these people. It's like, oh, sorry.
Well, except the thing that we pointed to, that we just talked about, was an email that was unredacted by the Justice Department last year. It's just that either Todd Blanche was too stupid to remember that, or more likely just didn't care, didn't think that the media would ever pick up on it. And by the way, the media never picked up on it. We picked up on it.
And good work to you for that. Thank you.
Thank you. But the point is, nothing on CNN, nothing on MSNBC.
Yep. And while Julie came to this on her own, completely on her own, there are a few other independent, media outlets and journalists who reported on this. We saw Allison Gill. I think Midas had posted something about this, but like it's like 3 or 4 people. I mean, as far as I can see, it might be more, but very few people.
Well, this is where we have to shame the big old media. They're still there. They still matter to an extent. And you have to do exactly what you've just done, which is shame them for not doing their job, for failing us in these moments.
It's amazing. It's amazing. They're just stenographers. It's incredible to me that Joe Scarborough, who I don't really know who watches him anymore, but there's a certain segment of people, I guess, official.
I watch so you don't have to.
Thank you. Okay.
See, that's what I do with Nick Fuentes. So we're even.
But I mean, she'll steer Joe Scarborough, Jeff, and she'll raise you Nick Fuentes. So how do you feel about that?
You win.
This is where the receipt stuff. So we've talked about this in receipts, right? Receipts are so important. And that's why, in my style of receipts, I had put together a video of Joe and Mika after the election making excuses, about their trip to Mar-a-Lago, then talking about the fact that they're still friends with him and we've known him a long time. And then, I have a lot of, legacy people who told me I did the right thing, but it's the people online that are so angry. And then I updated it the other night to include the Seth Moulton interview from late October when Seth Moulton was on. And he said that Donald Trump is in the files, and Joe Scarborough stops him and says, how do you know that? There's no proof to say that he's in the files. I mean, facts are facts. And Seth Moulton's like, what? And then again, yesterday morning saying there's no evidence that, and all the reporting points to the fact that Donald Trump's not in them, which it starts to, my spidey sensors, I'm like, what's going on here? Beyond just
honestly,
this is what I'm like. Why are you all up? Like, are you just, you want to keep your access to him? Let
me ask you both a question. If, and I was on before this with Pete Dominic, and I wonder, there were those of us who thought that grabbing women by would have been the end of it. There were those who thought that reports that he used the N-word would have been the end of it. What does it take?
Nothing.
Pardon me for this, but what's the smoking dick?
Nothing.
That could be the end of Donald Trump. I'm not sure that anything that comes out would be the death of Donald Trump's presidency and career.
No, I think a video of him and a 13-year-old could come out and people would find either ways to excuse it, make him out to be the victim, or, make accusations that it's AI and it's fake. Like there would be one of those. Well,
we actually talked about this today, and here's my view on this. If you watch Turning Point USA this weekend, what you saw was somebody like Ben Shapiro, who, again, I hate this timeline because I'm sitting here defending Ben Shapiro, but Ben Shapiro got up and tried to act somewhat responsibly by saying, can we just stop platforming Nazis? Like, can we just please stop platforming people who think Hitler's awesome?
Yeah.
And he got summarily booed by everybody from Tucker Carlson, by Megyn Kelly, by the Vice President
of the United States. Yes.
And effectively, their new thing now is that we don't have purity tests. So everything's about content, right? Everything is copy, to quote Nora Ephron, except now everything is content to be monetized. And you're a badass if you're transgressive. So if you're having sex with a 13-year-old, is that really any worse than saying the Holocaust was like either something that didn't happen or something that Jews use as an, to I don't know, whatever they think Jews have exploited the Holocaust to be. Everything's viral, right? Everything's about vibes, as I said. Everything's about content. And
so the whole government's about this. I mean, look at the Defense Department. I mean, everything they do is like filmed, and it's the cinematic kind of, experience to watch footage of CCOT. I mean, that's the other thing about what the thing on 60 Minutes, right? They talked about how like they were basically dragged off the plane in front of cameras because it was all content, all of it.
Well, it's not just that. I don't know if I mentioned this before on the show. I just finished listening to a book called Blank Space by W. David Marks, which is a cultural history of the first quarter of the century. We're already a quarter through the century, so it's worthwhile to do that. And he makes a really interesting point early on that it's not just to be transgressive, but to be outrageous in the extreme was redefined as cool. To be right-wing and awful was the new definition of cool. And it's a terrible indictment of our culture as a whole, obviously. But that's what happens. But at the same time, you look at the coverage of Turning Point, and the coverage quite legitimizes them.
Oh.
Yeah, they're fighting within, they're doing this and that. But the fact that they endorse J.D. Vance is treated as a legitimate political story. The Heritage Foundation falling apart, they're not exactly daisies in the field. They're awful, terrible people and architects of where we are, and they're being treated as a legitimate organization that's kind of standing up for the right thing by leaving because they went too far. Transgression is now the norm. There are no norms because busting norms to make content is the entire point.
I think about like the never Trumpers, right? It's like, I've never been a Republican, so I've always been in disagreement for the things that they've done and the way that they built their party to get to where we are now. But there was a certain amount of them when Donald Trump became, what he is for the party, that they all stepped aside and said no. So there was that. Okay. But it's like that line, that never Trumper line, which has, I guess, changed form and definition. It keeps getting moved.
Yes.
To bring more acceptable bad behavior. Like it's very strange. And again, to Julie's point about Ben Shapiro, like I can't tell you the amount of times in the last several years I've made videos making fun of that guy, including him sitting in front of the computer singing Les Mis, which is my favorite thing ever. Please go look it up. But it's the fact that now here we are agreeing with Ben Shapiro and to an extent Marjorie Taylor Greene. Like this, right? Like here we are. Like this is where we're going. Thomas Massey. I mean, Thomas Massey is somebody like a couple years ago I was like, F that guy, But he's out here with Ro Khanna standing up for the survivors, like fighting against Trump. And it's, this is I think what we're looking into, and we've all talked about this here and in other places, is the MAGA 2.0, America First. And again, on MSNBC yesterday, I watched them have a panel talking about the future of the Republican Party after Donald Trump. And I was flabbergasted. I actually couldn't believe what I was watching because they were making the point that, there'll be like a return to like some kind of moral clarity because Donald Trump is so awful. And I was like, did these people not watch TPUSA this weekend?
Right.
Because the vice president of the United States got on a stage and said out loud and proud, we don't have to apologize for being white anymore.
The definition of white nationalism right then and there, and they're not labeled. This is why I'm driven mad by the New York Times, the Washington Post et al., because they hide behind other words like imperialism. In Peter Baker's case. And it drives me completely nuts because they are failing us. Speaking
It's
of which,
not, it's such a great point that you make here. It's not an imperial presidency. It's a fascist presidency.
yes.
What do
The
you
New
mean?
York Times refuses. Peter Baker does these all the time. He did one about 2 weeks ago about, well, Trump might as well be an alcoholic because he acts drunk, rather than talking about his mental state and mental capabilities. And now he talks about it's imperialism to a whole imperial presidency to a whole new level. No, it's not. That odd. He thinks that he's attacking them, and by avoiding calling it authoritarianism, dictatorship, fascism, he doesn't explain what's going on. He fails democracy. He fails America. The New York Times fails us. It's just terrible.
This is, I mean, this is like the New York Times in whatever year it was. I don't know. I can't remember. Where they wrote about Hitler being tamed by prison.
Right.
Hitler tamed by prison. You know, this isn't a new thing. This is something that we do, and this is why again and again and again we continue to make these same mistakes and not learn anything from them.
Journalists think they write the first draft of history. They thus ignore history. They think that if it's not new, it's not news. They ignore it. They bring no context perspective to it. And I say this as self-criticism. I grew up in this field. That's the way I was. It had to be new. It had to be fresh. And we didn't look back and find the lessons of the past. No, history doesn't repeat itself, but it teaches us lessons unless you ignore them.
Yeah.
Exactly what Julie said earlier about Dachau is exactly the same. And people did get out of there, but people weren't reporting on it.
Listen, I will say this. Thank you for, this is.
Yeah, these photographs are the next thing down from the New York Times headline. This is, when you scroll down, this is next. And this is after that. That is the United States of America.
But the analogy that Peter Baker makes in the first 4 graphs is about how he went to, he had this state visit with King Charles at Windsor. And so therefore, when Mohammed bin Salman from Saudi Arabia came here, he wanted to do the same thing. This isn't about King Charles. This isn't about pomp and circumstance. That's not what we mean by imperial presidency. This guy's a fascist.
Yes, yes. Yes, and because the Times refuses, and journalists as a whole refuse to use it, we don't label things. That's not our job. Bullshit. That is exactly your job.
Yeah.
Because if you don't recognize it, if you don't label it as such, you can't report on it.
Yeah, like use your words. Use your words.
Yes.
Yes. And it's weird because his wife, who writes for the New Yorker, doesn't really have a problem using words like that most of the time.
Yeah. And listen, and Joe and Mika spent most of last year saying all of these things.
Yeah, they use.
And that's why this is even more egregious. That like now in 2025, on December 23rd, when we're recording this, I have videos of receipts of them, bending the knee to Donald Trump after they spent all of this time. And I mean, it's infuriating. I mean, these panels that Mika had with women and about believing women, and we have to uplift, and this man's a fascist and a sex pest and all these things. And now it's like, well, he is the president, and we have to, He's
not in the Epstein files. To Joe Scarborough, for Joe Scarborough to just use his platform, let's say nothing else. Let's say he said nothing else. How in hell does Joe Scarborough know whether he's in the Epstein files or not? First of all, by the time he said it, we already proved that he was. But let's assume that he said this 6 months ago. How does he know?
Well, Julie, it's even a little more perverse than that in my view. Scarborough's constant refrain is, as you said earlier, as Michelle, you said earlier about a panel you saw on MS Now.
Oh yeah, I forget about that.
I still have trouble doing it. Yeah, it's like pronouns. The pronouns are more serious than this. MS Now is just a brand. But I have the same problem. He keeps on talking about how to reclaim the Republican Party that he was part of, so he can remind us that he was in Congress, so he can remind us of all that, right? And he keeps on going back and thinking that there's some cure and some fix for the Republican Party. So his argument about the Epstein files is oddly, well, it's not in there, so just release them all. Why are you being stupid? The good PR move is just get them all out, get this out of the way.
Okay.
And, okay, I'll agree with that. Let's get them all out because it's the law of the land now to do that. Right. But he has this weird, kind of perverse, twisty road that he takes to get there.
Yeah. And it's not even like a both sides. It's just strange. It's
strange. It's not both sides. It's just access. It's the same way that Barry Weiss killing that story on Sunday was not about both sides, even though that's what it portrayed it to be. it's about access.
Yeah.
It's about access.
How many phone conversations are they having with Donald Trump in any given month? We don't know.
That's all they care about.
They called him after he was shot.
Yep.
And we don't know, and he's made reference to talking to them otherwise. So we know
He has said, Scarborough and Mika both say that they speak to him.
Yeah. In this past year, in one of the clips that I was digging up, he was on something saying, I've known him a really long time, and he's an old friend or whatever. And then Mika was on Andy Cohen's podcast and Andy Cohen asked, "Do you still talk to him?" And she goes, "Yeah, we do."
Yeah, because they live down the road from him. To be clear, they're never in New York.
No.
They pretend to do that show from New York. They have people on that show. I got to give the camera guys credit because
they make it look real.
Make it look real, but he's not there. Trust me. I'm in that studio enough where I know.
Yeah.
And it's the whole thing is just a complete farce, and it's a disgrace. And if you want to practice access journalism and masquerade that as something like, well, we have to because we have to know what's really going on. Again, what's going on is not what they're telling you.
Right. Then deliver something to your audience. Then if you supposedly get something out of that, then tell us what happens.
Right.
But they don't.
And he just about yelled at his audience because when they came forward and they said, we went to Mar-a-Lago after the election, and then we felt that we needed to have these conversations, and everybody was rightfully very angry about this. Joe Scarborough went on direct to camera, I think it was the next day or the day after that, yelling at his own audience, saying, we have these conversations and we know what's going on and we report that, just like the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal. Just very, very proud of himself, and how dare the rest of us have anything to say about that, because we're all stupid and we don't get it apparently. And that is why he has lost such a huge part of his audience, and they're never coming back. And that is a big reason why Julie and I started our morning show. Actually, that is the reason we started our morning show, because they're like, even if 1,000 people watch this, whatever, because we wanted to give people an alternative. Give people an alternative of where to go, somewhere to go where you can listen to what's going on and not be bullshit.
And I don't reject all of MS Now from 4 o'clock on and Nicole on. People I depend upon. Yeah. And but the afternoon is bad and the morning is unbearable. And it's too bad. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yep.
Okay, well...
so should we do one little brief update on the Z's?
You're talking about the Z's?
I have not read it. I have not read it.
I have not read all of it, but why don't you tell us? Because I only have another few minutes, so why don't we...
real quickly, we're now up to part 8. So the question is, which is the better cliffhanger we're going to have, which is part 8 entitled Bamboo for Ryan Lizza, or is it going to be Pluribus this week? And the other, he's stretching it like saltwater taffy right now. And this the prior, number 7 was all him fantasizing the cross-examination they would have had of Nosy had her case against him gone to trial. It didn't. So it was all kind of his fantasy. That was that. In this one, it's her fantasy of a screenplay or treatment that she wrote some time ago. But I just want to get this one little part where he says at the end, she summarized the show in one line, quote, "This is a story about someone who defects from the mainstream media to become a propagandist for an authoritarian politician. That someone is, in his view, the Olivia character." And in this fantasy, which is some years before things turned out the way they did, her character in his telling becomes the spokesperson for an authoritarian government run by, I think in this case, RFK. And she gets into a fight with the Maggie Haberman character where they're trying to shame each other. And it just shows the tawdry level to which American journalism has come. That she was someone who was admired and promoted and hired and and he was too. And this is where we are. So it makes me very sad for the career that I've devoted my life to, but it sucks out
Well, let
here.
me tell you something that sucks about Olivia Newsy. Actually, I can tell you many things that suck about Olivia Newsy. The part that sucks about Olivia Newsy in this particular case is that she was kind of the enfant terrible of the DC press corps because she knew how to turn a phrase. She's a very talented writer.
Oh yeah, very very much.
Very
So.
pithy, kind of in the more endowed, but even more kind of stiletto model.
Yeah.
And I guess being a good writer in the mechanical sense masks all sins, right? Because she was an access journalist.
Oh yeah.
The very definition of it.
Very
Yes,
definition.
She was the Giuliani whisperer for a long time too. Yeah.
Yes, but also she would go to Trump. She chucked out his ear.
Oh, yeah.
All of that, and the definition of it. But because she was young, and she was pretty, and she had dated powerful men who supported her financially, because I'm sure New York Magazine certainly wasn't giving her the money to
live in
herself that way.
or whatever. Yeah.
Because of that, what you ended up having was a press corps that was just falling over themselves with her. And I just remember being at the Texas Tribune Fest 2 years ago, and I was talking to Katie Couric and Tim Miller, and she just comes up.
Oh yeah, you told me.
And she looks at me, she goes, "I'm sorry, and you are?" And I said, "Olivia, I'm the person who knew you when you were 13 years old. Because you worked for somebody named Dan Jacobson, who I know very well, who ran a little weekly down at the Jersey Shore, and that's how she got her start. And she knew exactly who I was. We are Facebook friends. She knew exactly who I was.
Can you say she's liked pictures of your kid or whatever? It's she knows who she's talking to.
She knows exactly who I am. She knows exactly
This was
who
her
I am.
way.
And I don't want to be a jerk, but Gretchen Carlson and I were being honored. Thing. So,
did you check the program? Hello.
I'm not that person. But the point is, that's what I'm talking about. It was and you're with. I'm like,
yeah.
What the fuck are you?
Man, she needs to move to LA or something.
That's LA.
She is.
Wow, there you go.
That's where they do Dancing with the Stars. She's got to be there for it, right?
Because she realized that politics is Hollywood for ugly people, and she wanted to be in real Hollywood, all the closer to Cheryl Hines, who obviously she wants to emulate, all the closer to RFK Jr., who lives there. I think part of the attraction for her thing with RFK Jr. was also that he was married to a legitimate bona fide actress.
Yeah. On a very popular television show.
Very popular television show.
That's beloved by legitimate people.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So, as far as I'm concerned with Olivia Newsy, bye-bye, but she'll be back. She'll be back. And by the way, when she comes back, she'll be accepted back by all the same people.
So this episode has been all about Barry Weiss and Olivia Newsy. That's the state of American journalism.
And I want to say this before we go, because as it is Tuesday, December 23rd, the Kennedy Center Honors is going to air tonight. I won't be watching live. I'm going to catch the clips.
I'm not doing it.
I won't do it. For anybody who's new to this channel, my background is in the performing arts. This is my world. These are my people. I cannot tell you. Not these people, but the normal people. And this shatters my heart in ways that I cannot describe.
Just shut it down for the next 3 years. Just close it.
Right. And I just want to throw, he truthed this today, Donald Trump. He said, the Trump Kennedy Center Honors will be broadcast tonight on CBS and stream on Paramount Plus. Tune in at 8 p.m. Eastern. At the request of the board and just about everybody else in America, I am hosting the event. Tell me what you think of my master of ceremony abilities. If really good, would you like me to leave the presidency in order to make hosting a full-time job?
Yes. As a matter of fact, yes.
We will be honoring true greats in the history of entertainment. Sylvester Stallone, Michael Crawford, Kiss, George Strait, and Gloria Gaynor.
Let me say this, my friends.
Man.
He is gay, and you will never believe that he's not.
Oh, Donald Trump. Mm-hmm.
If Gloria Gaynor and Michael Crawford are who you think deserve to be at the height of American arts, and by the way,
yep. I mean, Phantom. Who loves Phantom?
I love Phantom. I like Phantom. I like Gloria Gaynor.
He was probably the one musical theater actor, singer from the musicals that he loved, that would come and do it. I mean, Patti LuPone's not going to come and do it. She would have like told him to, kick rocks, or actually more profanity than just kick rocks. But he's like the only one that accepts Donald Trump. So he's, got to have, it's just, he's hosting. I mean,
also a
oh my
steroid
God.
fest.
Yeah. Yes, it is a steroid.
Oh, yeah.
All right, friends, I got to run.
Yeah.
I have to go. Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope you had a nice Christmas. We will see you next week. And I guess
before we enter the new year, next week will be next year will be in the new year. Yes.
Yes.
That's right.
So happy New Year, everybody. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful New Year. Hope you have a peaceful, good start to the year, and we will see you in the new year in 2026. Bye,
Same
everybody.
to you both, my friends.
Bye.
Bye.